Ever notice how some people just like totally clam up when you try to take their picture?
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not talking about the usual like, oh, I hate pictures kind of thing.
Right.
It's something more
Yeah.
deeper, I think. Like
Definitely.
they almost get uncomfortable,
Totally.
it seems like. And we're tackling that today in our deep dive, autism and photography.
It's really interesting, actually, because what we tend to do is focus on the social interaction challenges,
Right.
which are very real, obviously. But
I know.
sensitivities are a huge piece of this, too.
I would imagine so, yeah.
And they're often overlooked.
That's interesting because the source material we dug up for today's deep dive really digs into that sensory sensitivity aspect.
Yeah.
And like you were saying, it's not just disliking bright lights or the shutter sound.
It's way more than dislike.
Right.
It's like everything's amplified.
Interesting.
You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like like an internal volume knob is just cranked up way too high. And so that camera flash is like a bolt of lightning.
Yeah.
Or the click is like this mini explosion.
It kind of puts things in perspective.
Totally.
For those of us who don't experience that,
For sure.
that's wild.
Yeah, it's not just like, oh, I don't like that. It's like it's like a full-on sensory
Overload.
Yeah, overload.
And then you add on top of that the social anxiety
Oh, absolutely.
that can often go hand in hand with autism.
Huge.
And photography just kind of...
Oh, yeah. It just pours gasoline on that fire.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Because now you're not only dealing with all the sensory stuff,
Exactly.
but now you've got the pressure of appearance.
You've got the eye contact, which can be really, really difficult.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, that's got to be...
For a lot of people on the spectrum, eye contact can be so invasive.
Intense.
Yeah, it can be really uncomfortable.
Wow.
And it's almost like this information overload that's really hard to process.
Yeah.
And then you've got someone saying, okay, look here, smile.
Look at the camera.
It's a lot.
It's like those awkward family photos
Oh, tell me about it.
that we've all experienced,
Everyone's got them.
but like times 10.
Yeah, yeah.
And then one of the things that really struck me when I was reading through this source material was how communication difficulties just add another layer to all of this.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Because imagine, feeling all of that discomfort, that sensory overload, but you don't have the words or maybe even the nonverbal cues to express that.
Right.
And that's a very real challenge for a lot of individuals with autism, especially those with more limited verbal skills.
It's got to be so frustrating
Incredibly frustrated.
to be in that position where you can't communicate.
You can't make it clear what you're feeling.
Right.
And it can lead to meltdowns. It can lead to all sorts of things.
I can imagine.
It's tough.
Yeah, it's kind of heartbreaking to think about.
Oh, totally.
Just being in that situation where you want to enjoy something,
Yeah.
but it's like your body's just not letting you.
It's just not cooperating.
Yeah, and then you can't even communicate that.
Right. And that's where the understanding and awareness is just so important.
It's crucial
Thing.
because it's not like we can just like read minds and
Right.
and know
This would all be a lot easier.
exactly. This would be a very different
Really different.
deep dive, right?
Right. But luckily, the source material doesn't just like point out the problems.
Thank goodness.
There's some really helpful advice in here
Okay.
about how to create a more positive experience
I like it.
for everybody involved.
Okay, so what do we got?
So one thing is like creating a comfortable environment.
Okay.
Yeah.
So instead of just assuming
Yeah, ditch the assumptions.
what normal is for photography.
Right, because what is normal anyway, it's
Mhm.
different for everybody.
Exactly.
But think like dimmer lights, maybe a quieter space,
Okay.
maybe even like letting the individual get familiar with the camera beforehand.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah, just kind of get comfortable with it.
So it's not such a shock.
Exactly. And, if they're really sensitive to flashes, maybe try natural light.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Just kind of work with what they need instead of expecting them to conform to this idea of like a standard photo shoot.
Right. It's about adapting to their needs, not the other way around.
Exactly.
I love that.
It's a much more like compassionate approach, I think.
It really is, yeah.
And it's not just about the physical environment either.
Okay.
The source also talks about the power of offering choices.
Ooh, choices. I like that.
Yeah, because it gives the individual a sense of control,
Right.
which can be huge.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like instead of just dictating poses or backgrounds, you're like, hey, what do you think? Do you want to stand or sit? Look at the camera. Maybe look over there, inside or outside.
Right. It's collaborating.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's a collaboration, not a dictatorship.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even those small choices can make a world of difference.
It's like anything in life, right?
Oh, for sure.
Like you're much more likely to enjoy something if you have some say in how it goes.
100%. And that kind of ties into the next point, which is patience and understanding.
Oh, absolutely.
This isn't about fixing a problem. It's about creating a positive experience.
It's not about the perfect picture.
It's about the feeling.
Yeah, it's about making sure everyone feels comfortable and respected.
Exactly.
So we've talked a lot about like the sensory experience and the social anxiety piece of it.
Yeah.
But what about like the actual act of taking pictures?
Oh, yeah.
Does the source have any tips for that?
Yeah, they do. And this one's really cool, actually.
Okay, let's hear it.
Let the individual with autism be the photographer.
Oh, that's awesome.
Right?
Yeah, what a good idea.
Like, if they're open to it,
Of
obviously,
course, yeah,
but it kind of flips the script.
totally.
You know, they go from object to director.
And I have the control.
They have the control they get to choose what to photograph, how to frame it up, when to click the button.
It's all them.
It's all in their terms.
That's so smart.
It can be really empowering. And even if they're not quite ready to be behind the lens,
Okay.
even just letting them, like, handle the camera beforehand.
Oh, yeah, get familiar with it.
Explore the buttons and features.
That makes a big difference, I think, for sure.
It really can. Yeah, it kind of demystifies the whole thing.
And I think that's probably good advice, even beyond just
Oh, total.
autism and photography.
Yeah, like in general.
Right.
It's a good approach.
It's like we get so caught up in like, oh, I want to remember this moment.
Totally.
Or I want to get this picture for Instagram or whatever,
Yeah.
that we forget to like actually check in
With the humans.
with the humans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Involved.
Like, are you okay with this?
Exactly. And it's so easy to miss those cues.
Absolutely.
Like, you're behind the lens, you're thinking about the shot.
You're composing everything.
Yeah, you're not necessarily
Right.
picking up on the fact that someone's like subtly leaning away.
Totally, yeah.
Or their smile is like,
Forced.
yeah, or their eyes are saying, get me out of here.
And again, I think that applies even outside of just autism and
I'm
photography.
like 100%.
Like, how many times have you had a friend who's like, oh, I hate having my picture taken?
Oh, all the time.
You know, and it's like, we need to be more aware, I think, in general.
Yeah, just more mindful.
Yeah.
More tuned in to those cues.
Because, you know, maybe they're not comfortable in that outfit or
Right.
they don't love that pose or
It's
whatever.
about respect, right?
It is, yeah.
Like respecting people's boundaries and comfort level.
Totally. And this has been such a good conversation.
Mm.
I feel like this is like
It's been really interesting, right?
eye-opening because we've gone from cheesy grins to like,
Yeah, from like the very surface level.
yeah, to like this whole world.
To like diving into the sensory experience, the
Mhm.
social anxieties, all of it.
Yeah. And like you were saying before, it's so easy to forget about that sensory piece of it
It's huge.
and just how overwhelming that can be.
It's real. Like, those
Ah.
are real experiences.
It's not just like people being difficult.
Exactly. It's not about that at all.
Right.
It's about understanding that what might seem really simple to you
Totally.
could be incredibly overwhelming for someone else.
I love that as like a takeaway for anything, really.
Right. Like, that's a good rule for life, I think.
It is a good rule for life. That's so true.
A little empathy goes a long way
A
than
little-
any situation.
Right. That should be like the tagline for our show.
I'll take it.
Empathy.
Mm.
So as we wrap up our deep dive here,
We're wrapping it up already.
I know I'm sad too.
Time flies.
It does.
When you're having fun.
It really does. But for those of you listening who want to learn more, because I know we just kind of skimmed the surface here.
We always do.
We always do. We encourage you to check out the full source material.
Yeah, there's some really good stuff in there.
Tons of insights,
Mhm.
tons of really practical advice.
It's worth a read.
It is worth your time. But the biggest takeaway, I think, from today is just that a little empathy and understanding can go a long way.
Couldn't agree more.
And the best memories aren't always picture perfect.
Sometimes the messy ones are the best ones.
That is so true. And until next time, happy snapping, everyone.